Well, today is the final day of our 11/11 global shopping broadcast with WPP, BAV and Alibaba. And in true honoured time fashion, we're going to show you the best of our broadcasting over the past few days. Now, every single interview is available for you to watch on demand on the website, so please go to that. But here is a little taster that's coming up now. But don't forget that after that, we have our keynote interview with Michael Evans, the president of Alibaba. Don't miss that. Enjoy the best bits.
It's a pleasure to be here. As you say, we're live coming from the MediaCom 11 War Room. So you can probably see behind me some screens. I've hashed them out. Normally this would be full of Tmall data, streaming live, so the teams here can collaborate, can work together, and really try and drive the business forward. We have these rooms serving our clients here in the WPP campus in Shanghai. So yeah, really exciting time.
Well, you can apologise to your colleagues that we've kicked them out for 45 minutes. I'm sure they'll all be back beavering away, and maybe they can get a well-earned break. Rupert, how many 11/11s have you been through?
So this is now my seventh 11/11.
I'm surprised you've still got hair.
Less and less, David, to be honest. But it's days like these, it's events like this, a part of the reason that China is such an exciting place to be in our business and obviously for our customers. Really transformational times.
Now, clearly, 11/11 is important for you as a business, and it's very important for all of you, for your clients. And I'd imagine for most of those clients, 11/11 is probably the biggest sales period across the year. Over those years that you've been involved, how would you typify the changes that you've seen over 11/11? I mean, clearly we looked at numbers, so the numbers are growing, but underneath that, what are the fundamental drivers?
Well, look, I mean, the numbers are staggering, and they remain staggering to me even after seven versions of this. And I'll dwell on the numbers a little bit, if I may, because we talked earlier, you mentioned in your introduction about, the importance of live streaming, for example. And we looked at some of the opening days, live streaming, the impact of some of these key live streamers like Austin Lee and Via. These presenters, these live streamers, they're on air for 10 hours a day, but the sales that they're generating is staggering. So if you look at something like Austin Lee on day one, over 10 billion RMB of GMV, of sales.
Do you want to say that again slightly slower, Rupert? How much is that?
Yeah, sure. So one live streamer covering multiple brands over 12 hours on the opening day, 10.7 billion RMB of sales. And on the same day, another key live streamer, Via, achieved over 8 billion RMB of sales. So although after 7 years I'm quite used to some big numbers, the numbers are still quite staggering.
Now, how would you say this technology is either impacting retail now or will impact retailing over the course of the next few years?
Yeah, I think that the retail will be impacted enormously in the next few years. I think it's only the beginning. It's just like, scratching the surface of the immense potential of what can happen to retailers. E-commerce, if you think about it, hasn't been changed for many, many years. On the past 2 decades, it's pretty much looked the same, all like tedious feeds with images and visuals.
Actually, you make a really good point, because actually, if you look at the Amazon's homepage on day one versus the Amazon homepage today, is not a great deal of difference.
Exactly. Nothing has really changed. I mean, around like user experience and the look and feel and the UI and the UX. And I think in the physical spaces, in the brick and mortar, when we go and look at different type of stores, It doesn't matter if it's a fast fashion or a luxury brand. They have their unique experience. It's everything about the brand experience, the way that you create the journey, in the store, and how you organize it, and what type of visuals and sounds and smells, the people are kind of be part of the experience. And it doesn't, you don't have it today in the e-commerce. And I think part of the, you mentioned metaverse, but basically those type of virtual spaces can create and bring back, the fun and the experience that we have in the physical world, and not in the, that doesn't exist today in the digital world. And I think this will impact retail dramatically, and we're going to see new type of stores and new type of experiences and connection to people that we haven't seen before.
To what extent are sort of glasses going to be a component element of that experience? I mean, many of us have played around with Google Glass when it was first brought out. It made us all look like idiots in a sense. Nobody in their right mind would have been walking down the streets with it. So to what extent is that a barrier to the sort of wide-scale adoption of this type of technology, or is the technology going to change, or will, I don't know, Apple make glasses cool?
Yeah, I think it's a barrier today. I mean, the headsets are still like heavy and ugly, and it's not really convenient, and you can't really, be with a headset for many hours. But the technology is advancing, and I think, as you said, like Apple, everybody's waiting to see what Apple are going to release. But it's not only Apple. We know that all the big giant company, technology tech companies are working on their own platform. So it's Facebook and HTC that we all know that, do the VR, but Google and Microsoft and Apple and Samsung and Alibaba and many other companies that build their own platforms to do that. And we're going to see a major shift in consumption. So today it's not convenient, and this is why you don't see a lot of adoption yet. I mean, lack of content, and again, the devices are not really easy to use, but they're really improving like every year. And I think that 3 versions from today's version, it will probably be much more convenient. People will, basically would be able to put like a very small glasses like I'm wearing here, and have all the AR and VR, MR capabilities inside, and it will be much more convenient. So we'll see more and more people starting to adopt this type of glasses.
With regards to doing e-commerce business in China, I think it really is the scale and the complexity and the cost that are the things that are the biggest concerns when people speak to me about doing business in China. And I think a lot of that is from learned experience, or having watched other brands go in and maybe not quite pick the right route to market or the right business model to be able to be successful doing it, and also not quite kind of having a China mindset and a China first mindset of understanding China as an e-commerce ecosystem that exists separately to the West. I think one of the big issues that it takes a little while to overcome as a business when you're new to China is trying to, and it's a really natural thing to do, but trying to associate everything that you're doing in China with a mirror program or a mirror web marketplace or social commerce platform or social media network in the West. So things get really oversimplified. Taobao is eBay, Tmall is Amazon, Little Red Book is Instagram. Actually, none of those things really directly correlate, although they do have some similarities. So I think a lot of those concerns are founded in not quite having dived deep enough into understanding the Chinese e-commerce ecosystem themselves, or by picking a partner who hasn't put the miles in to explain it to them and help get them on board and bring them down that journey.
Now, what are some of the urban myths in your experience of things that people think are much more complicated, more difficult than they are? Then we'll tackle the ones that are complicated.
Yeah, absolutely. So a really specific example from one of the sectors that we work with, China has had a long-standing history of requiring animal testing for beauty products. To sell via cross-border e-commerce, that's not required. A lot of people, if they're thinking about selling to China from their own global e-commerce site, the first thing they say is, oh, well, we need to have everything translated into Mandarin immediately. And they think about the cost of translating 5,000 SKUs worth of pages into Chinese and keeping that constantly updated with new assets. Not necessarily true. You don't have to do everything at once. And I think that's kind of my first major message about kind of trying to debunk myths with China. You get a lot of, if you want to enter China, you have to go straight to a Tmall Global store, or you have to do everything kind of to start off with and commit a huge amount of marketing. But actually, there are incremental things that you can do to help you understand your customer base, help you generate a feedback loop so that you can get better data, better knowledge, better insight from consumers about which products resonate, why they resonate, why they hate your packaging, why they think that you're too expensive or not expensive enough. I think the other big concern that people often used to come to me with, it's a monumental task, and I think people never quite understand fully where to start. I think Tmall and Alibaba are doing a great job of demystifying that, and that's only got stronger over the years. But you don't have to do it on your own, and actually having partners, working with WPP agencies to understand who your consumer is or to market to them, working with someone like us as a distributor or a logistics partner, working with a social agency who can really help you kind of shape your brand and identify the key messages, give people the reasons to buy your brand. Costs of that add up. The more people you add into the pie, of course, but you don't have to do it alone, and actually doing it alone is kind of difficult.
The pandemic has really put a laser focus on health and wellness for consumers in China. At Tmall Global, the health category grew 50% year on year last year. And really 4 key areas have seen a rise. The first one is that since the start of the pandemic, Chinese consumers, they immediately sought out products to boost their immunity. For example, single vitamins like vitamin C, vitamin D, just to really boost their overall protection against the virus. And then due to exactly what we're doing right now, the increase in video calls from working at home and being able to not being able to socialize in person, so being able to video call your friends, the demand for inner beauty supplements and collagen really increased. The second trend that we saw was that in China, they really behave in a very preventative health mindset. They have really different attitudes to health management than we do in the West. And that really stems from traditional Chinese medicine. And this continues through the generations. So products that are traditionally bought by an older consumer in the West are actually being consumed by millennials and Gen Z in China. One example of that would be lutein supplements for eye health, which you traditionally take when your eyes start to degenerate as you get older. But actually Chinese consumers are taking them at a much younger age to combat against the amount of blue light exposure from screen time. The third really interesting trend that we're seeing right now is the supplements for gamers. We're really witnessing this as an evolution of sport nutrition. Gamers are seeking out products like glucosamine to help with the stiff joints that you get from sitting in the same position while you're gaming, but also nootropics to keep your mind alert so that you can be as advanced as possible at the game and be really sharp. But then after that, you need something to wind down, so to help you sleep. So sleep supplements are very, very popular.
I mean that's very interesting, because you don't really think about gaming as driving a requirement for nutrition and food.
Absolutely, you don't think of it as a sport, but actually it is a sport to keep your mind so sharp and to be able to play for that many hours in the same position. It's really interesting. But then very closely linked to that, but actually much broader, is the final trend for healthy snacking. So gamers, people at work, busy gym goers, busy moms, everybody who's busy in China, they really are looking for ways to prioritize their health through what they eat. I think all of us are really time poor, and in China, they're really looking for things that range from protein bars to on-the-go shakes to even getting those beauty treatments and supplements through snacks. So we see a rise in demand for collagen gummies, niacinamide breadsticks, and then linked very closely to traditional Chinese medicine, there's this trend for punk health right now. So we're seeing consumers look for things like goji berry coffee or broccoli flavored ice cream. So having something that's quite indulgent, but also combining something that's very healthy with it to make it a really enjoyable snack.
I mean, we've seen, I think it's almost 100 million more consumers who are participating, which is, right, that's like a third of the US population, right? I mean, that's a big number. We've seen kind of many more, if you will, merchants and brands participating as well. And then, what we've heard anecdotally as we've spoken to all the platforms, and we've also surveyed consumers as well, is that, the sales, and especially you've got kind of these two, if you will, pre-sales periods, however you're kind of characterizing them before the kind of build up to the big day, that has really kind of been, kind of incredibly helpful. And right, last year the consumer was educated and on this kind of new approach to Double 11. And this year, right now that they know and they experienced before, they're kind of, if you almost in some ways like tempering their spending and planning, I guess is more the way to approach it. But it's like you've got your kind of first pre-sale period and you've got your kind of second period, and then kind of waiting for the big day. And so what we've seen, I think, is much greater numbers and kind of what many would have expected, which is phenomenal.
So I want to show you this a video about what live streaming is. Maybe it'll give you a better visual.
Hi there, we are And Lux Inc. We launched in 2009 and worked with over 400 US and European brands. In the past 4 years, we introduced live stream commerce to 200 brands, totaling over 3,000 hours of live shows. In the last few decades, remote retailing evolved from TV shopping to online shopping to current mobile shopping. In the last few years, live stream commerce has revolutionized how consumers shop online in Asia. So what exactly is live stream shopping? The best way to describe it is a combination of TV shopping plus e-commerce plus Instagram Live into live shopping shows broadcasting into smart devices and computers. You can talk to the sellers directly, view products, and make purchases all at the same time from anywhere. Whether you're on the way to work, relaxing in a bath, or even hanging out at a party. With just a few simple clicks, the host can go live, allowing live shows to happen anywhere, delivering a fun and immersive experience that will take you to places. Also, chatting and shopping together with hundreds of like-minded people just makes it more fun, social, and addictive. It's a party.
All right, so as you can see, live streaming offers so much more for consumer to connect with the brand. Like David said, a picture is worth 1,000 words.
Of course, I think there's two key factors when we're looking at China. Number one, of course, is the acceleration in digitization that we've seen over the last year. And number two, and this will come up often in our conversation today, is the fact that Chinese luxury consumers that usually consume outside of China are in China. So there is a lot more consumption happening locally. But even if we look at just one number, I'll give you is the penetration of online purchases in luxury has grown exponentially in the last year. So for some brands, we're up to 30%, some are just, down at the 7-8%, but overall it's 23% of online purchases for luxury goods. So I think that really is one number that gives us an idea of how important the online commerce has become for luxury brands.
But when it comes to China, it's the similar story has started in China, but something different is starting to happen in China. The problem with Silicon Valley is that Silicon Valley is a really expensive place to live, right? And salaries are high. It's very hard to break into there. To go and start a business now in the States, if you want to be a startup, you probably have to go to Denver, or you have to go to Salt Lake City, somewhere that's a little bit cheaper, or you have to be really cash rich. China's already found that problem and started to navigate away from Shenzhen as being that home of innovation. Shenzhen, obviously, as a city, I mean, it didn't really exist as a city until the 80s, and Deng Xiaoping putting those sort of special tax breaks in place as a special autonomous zone very close to Hong Kong to specialize in technology that helped build that industry up out of Shenzhen. But if you go across China now, all these massive companies that deal with media, technology, telecommunications are popping up everywhere throughout China. They might come up first in Shenzhen or Beijing or Shanghai, but they're based everywhere. I think China's taking the best of what made innovation hubs in the West great and started putting those in all the big cities in China, but also looking to tier 2 cities and possibly even tier 3 cities as places to hub companies because talent is cheaper and they can do more. So that's why you see on the screen here, none of these different companies that might not be household names yet in the West. They've probably only made an impact within China, the Chinese diaspora, or maybe elements of Southeast Asia. But there's a lot more room to grow. But they're still taking the best of what makes a great innovation hub and just transplanting that in very different cities. I'm going to come back to talk a little bit more about some of those companies in more detail. But I think I want to talk about just how that innovation emanates out of China into other countries. So I think that's quite important for you to understand what makes these companies great and what we can learn from them. I might be being a little bit cynical here, but personally, I don't feel that there has been that much innovation in terms of new companies in the media and marketing space in probably the last 5 years outside of China. I think China has been the place where you have seen the new being done very well, and in a sort of reversal of roles, you're now seeing the West starting to take what's great from China and apply it through Western technology rather than, say, the Chinese looking to the West and then sort of making their own version of things. And there are three areas, I think, that have been good examples of this. The first is mobile payments. And this has been something, I think, in Asia at least, it's been around for a little bit longer than that. I spent a lot of time in Japan, for example, and they had mobile payments for quite some time there, but certainly the Chinese have mastered it. And even now, we still haven't got mass adoption in the West yet. We obviously see Apple Pay taking off. You see peer-to-peer payment systems like Venmo becoming very popular. But if you go to China and you have WeChat, everything works on your phone. It's all embedded. You can go into anywhere, tap your phone, manage all your payments through your phone device. It's so much more advanced there, and it's certainly something we are catching up on in the West. The second is what I call e-commerce 2.0. Obviously, e-commerce was definitely more of an American thing originally, where it came from, but the way that the Chinese have taken e-commerce and turned that into not only a merging of virtual and physical, so Alibaba owning Tmall, but also owning physical spaces and being able to shop and buy across both, the idea of last mile delivery, that's all being driven out of China. And that China is much more advanced in that than we are in the West, and we are definitely playing catch up. And last is live streaming, something that has, I think, come into its own during the pandemic. You now see Twitch and Amazon doing a little live streaming, Facebook. It seems to be the big new thing, but in China they've been doing that incredibly well for the last couple of years. And you start to see an evolution of the live streaming product in China around things like shopping and the platforms themselves. And indeed, I'll show you another example later on today. Brands in China starting to use live streaming as a way to sell their product. So a lot of these big innovations we've talked about in the West, and we've talked about big platforms driving, they first were seen, or at least were matured in the Chinese market. And certainly China now feels like they're driving that conversation. I can't not mention TikTok when I talk about Chinese innovation. It is, and I don't know if people know this or not, but it has been the most downloaded app in the last 2 years globally. It is, in my mind, going to be the biggest app in the world at some point in the next 12 to 24 months, so nipping at Facebook's heels. It doesn't seem to be slowing down in growth, which is just incredible. And I think what's interesting about TikTok is that they've taken some of those big trends that you just saw and really mastered it. And that's why it's cut through. Obviously, the content is fantastic. It's an addictive little app, but they've looked to new trends and sort of built their platform around that. But what I think is really interesting too about TikTok is that it's a new generation of social platform. Every other social platform that exists in the West, and I'm sorry I keep using the term in the West, I should say not in China, but platforms like Facebook and things like that, they weren't really built for the world that we live in now. They've adapted for the world that we live in now. And TikTok's starting a bit from a clean slate.